Hi everyone, welcome to the Moving to Australia podcast. Today we shall be exploring visa options available to Australian citizens or permanent residents who might want to bring their parents over temporarily or permanently to join them in Australia. In this episode, we break down everything you need to know about parent visas for Australia, from eligibility requirements to processing times and application tips. We'll guide you through the available visa options for parents of Australian citizens or permanent residents. Welcome, Amitava. How you been?
Good, Arun. How have you been? It has been a while.
Yeah, how was your trip to India?
It was great. It was a change, and I had a lot of work done when I was there, personal as well as business.
So, coming to parent visas, Amitava.
Yes.
There are quite a few temporary and permanent visa options available for parents.
Correct.
Keeping in mind the cost, eligibility, and processing times, what would be your recommendation to someone who wants to bring their parents over to Australia?
So, Arun, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. It really depends on the family's priorities. If permanency is the goal and cost is less of a concern, contributory parent visas like Subclass 143 or Subclass 173 are often the fastest route. Subclass 143 is direct permanent. Subclass 173 is temporary and a stepping stone to 143 after coming on shore, where the cost is split. However, if cost is a major factor, non-contributory visas like Subclass 103 parent visas can be an option, but the wait time is exceedingly high. Can you guess?
35 years.
30 years to 50 years.
And what about the first two that you mentioned, contributory parent visa?
It used to be less earlier. Now these are also quite high, and it can go up to 8 years to 12 years.
And what kind of cost are we looking at for those two visas?
The contributory parent visa, initially you had to pay for a couple around 7,000 something, and there's a balloon at the end when it is approved, which is close to $50,000 per parent.
Wow, that's quite exorbitant, quite steep.
Yes.
So what's the requirement for someone to be an eligible sponsor?
To be an eligible sponsor, one has to be an Australian citizen, Australian permanent resident, or an eligible New Zealand citizen. At least 18 years of age, usually residing in Australia. So usually residing there is a definition in regulations. And I normally make it easy for my clients. I say that if you are in Australia and paying taxes for at least 2 years, you are usually resident. Okay, and sometimes you have to be able to meet the income threshold, especially for Subclass 870 sponsored parent visa, and willing to provide financial support and accommodation. So there will be a need to provide assurance of support. There is a way to do that. There's a process for it.
Now, does the applicant need to be in Australia or overseas when applying for the parent visa?
Well, that depends on the visa subclass. For sponsored parent visa, subclass 870, the parent usually must be outside Australia when applying, when the visa is granted, unless there's a special permission granted to apply onshore. For permanent visas like 143 or 103, the 143 is the contributory parent visa, 103 is the normal parent visa. Parents can apply from either onshore or offshore, but the location at the time of application and decision must match. So if you apply from Australia, then at the time of decision you must be in Australia.
And if the applicant is not, when the decision is about to be made?
Well, they'll be asked to move to that location. Okay. Now, there's another point. For these visas, 143, 102, which are usually offshore visas. There is no concept of bridging visa. So what this means is that even if you apply in Australia, you'll not get a bridging visa. There are visas that allow one to get a bridging visa, and these are known as aged parent visas. So each of these have aged parent versions. Onshore aged parent visa, which is the aged parent version of 103. Onshore aged contributory parent visa, which is the aged parent version of 143. And when you apply for these, you get a bridging visa. And when do you get a bridging visa? You can continue to stay here after the visa has expired. Now, do you know the definition of aged? It is the age when you are eligible for superannuation. In Australia, it is 67 years of age, as of now.
Okay.
And hence, I get a lot of these questions where the people are generally aware of this aged parent visa. When they are worried about their parents and they want their parents to be in Australia, they come and say, okay, my father, one of them has to be aged. Yeah, both do not, because the one who is past 67 can be the primary. The other one, even if the other person, the spouse, is less than 67, can be included in the application.
Okay. There is something called balance of family test that parents must meet to be eligible to apply for a parent visa. Can you shed some light on that?
So that means for the normal parent visas, the number of children, at least half or more of the children must be in Australia. Must be living in Australia, as well as they should be either Australian citizens, permanent residents, or eligible New Zealand citizens. So, can you tell me then, I'll ask you a question. If someone has 3 children, how many should be in Australia for the parents to be eligible?
At least 2.
At least 2. So at least half. And for 3, there's no half, right? So it has to be 2. Yeah, a lot of people say, okay, so what if I just make one of them vanish? I said, well, you can't do that.
So there is absolutely no way around it if at least half of the children are not residing in Australia.
Some people think they can hide the fact that they have 3 children, but it is on record, because those who have got the PRs, their family details are already recorded.
Yeah, when they first arrived in Australia.
Yes. Or when they applied for their PR or citizenship.
Now, for most visa subclasses...
Okay, now let me go back to this family test again. Sorry.
Yeah.
There is something else. Sponsored family subclass 870.
Yes.
Yeah, that does not require the balance of family test.
Okay. So for most visa subclasses, when applying for that visa, the parent must not have already applied for or held a sponsored parent temporary subclass 870 visa.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Okay, so this particular visa is a temporary visa, and the criteria there is a criteria to be satisfied by the children or the sponsoring child. One is the income criteria, which is I think the income has to be more than 86,000 something. I don't remember the exact figure. And the other one is that usually the child has to be resident in Australia for at least 4 years. Okay, and it doesn't have to be as a PR for these 4 years, but resident for 4 years, but now at least must be a PR, similar to the citizenship test. Okay, now why they do that, it is something we are not sure. So it could be that they want to prevent overlapping applications that may create confusions, or they want to limit. I don't know. I think why is probably something that I cannot answer. It's not mentioned explicitly why.
So that means if a parent has held the subclass 870 visa in the past, they become ineligible to apply for the aged parent visa or contributory parent visa.
Any parent visa that is permanent visa, they can never apply.
They can never apply.
So I always caution, and this is a catch. If you apply for this sponsored parent visa, which at any point of time it is given for a maximum period of 5 years, and total you can only apply for 10 years. So once the 10-year duration is gone, the parents cannot apply for the parent visa.
So they can never move to Australia.
They can never move. Well, this is generally for those who do not satisfy the balance of family, because they are never going to be eligible for PR anyway.
Yes.
Okay. So, but what about those who do qualify? So then, while the parent visa application is in progress, they can apply for this, but not vice versa.
Okay. Now, you also mentioned something about the income of the sponsoring child being at a certain threshold. But what if the child who's sponsoring is unemployed, but the husband or the wife, the spouse is earning enough money to support the parents stay here in Australia?
It's
Then
for
what happens?
subclass 870. It'll be either the sponsoring child or the child's spouse.
Okay. So your final thoughts for people who, as you know, face anxiety when navigating this complex landscape of when to bring in our parents, on what visa to bring in, what's the cost, what's the wait time, eligibility criteria. What are your final thoughts for them? What is it that they should do?
Well, it's totally understandable to feel overwhelmed. There are many options, many fine print rules, long wait times involved. But here's the good news. A, you are not alone. It's a common journey for many families. So it's not like you are singled out. B, seek help from a registered migration agent who can navigate you through this unique situation. Every situation is unique. So, as I said earlier, there is no one size fits all. So, usually I look at the background and suggest the best option. C, have a clear goal. Do you want temporary reunion, long-term migration, or a mix of both? Or, do you want temporary now, migration later? Or no, it also depends. In a lot of cases, the children want the parents to migrate. The parents clearly call me up and say, look, we do not want to migrate, full stop. So that clarity is important. Talk to your parents. They may not want to move and leave their social circle in their home country and move here permanently. So that clarity helps in choosing the right pathway. And number 4, or D, I think I said A, B, C, right? So this is D. Lastly, stay patient and informed. Immigration policies do evolve, and sometimes new pathways or concessions become available. Home Affairs are working on making this more streamlined. They're aware of the stress and they're aware of the contributions made by the parents by being here, which helps in reducing the stress level of their children and making them more available for workforce, right? So there's a long-term advantage of having parents. Remember, it's a journey, and with the right planning, families can and do reunite successfully in Australia. There's another thing I want to say, if you do not have the money, contributory parent, which apparently takes less time, you could opt for the aged parent visa. Because usually Usually, most 67 is not really old, right? And people reach that quickly. Yeah, and by the time you are settled, and your parents would have reached 67, one of them. So try that. Try the onshore aged parent visa, and then you will see that all you need to probably spend is the health insurance for their well-being.
Do parents who apply for the aged parent visa get a bridging visa if they want to travel out of the country?
In order to travel out, they have to apply for bridging visa B, which usually is granted for a period of 1 year.
Okay. Because you did mention some visas where you can't get a bridging visa.
No, aged parent visa, only aged parent visa and aged contributory parent visa, you get a bridging visa. So first you get bridging visa A, where you cannot travel. Well, if you can travel, but your bridging visa will be cancelled. So before you travel, you have to apply for bridging visa B, which is granted with a travel permission of 1 year. And then you have to apply for it again if you want to travel back. So it's usually granted. It's not an issue. So the point I was making earlier is, if you look at the medical insurance cost and the cost for contributory parent visa, let's say they are on, your parents are on aged parent visa. Each year, you will probably be spending around $5,000, and 8 years it'll be 40,000, right? 12 years it'll be. So you can do the math and decide, okay, maybe I will save this money and apply for aged contributory parent visa, where at the end of the balloon, or at the end of the period when the visa is about to be granted, there is a balloon which is equivalent to the money you would have otherwise spent for Medicare.
Now, earlier today, I was looking at the cost of the visa between aged parent care and contributory parent visa. It's quite significant. Like, contributory parent visa is somewhere around 35,000. Aged parent visa is around 7,900, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so I think I covered it earlier. Contributory parent visa.
Why the significant difference in the cost?
There's no difference. I'll just explain again. So when you apply for aged parent visa or contributory parent visa, at the time of application, there is hardly any difference. That's why I said there's a balloon. And the balloon is not 35,000, it is around 50,000. But that has to be paid at the end of that period, before the visa is granted. So you don't pay when applying. In fact, for contributory parent visa, the visa application charges is less than the normal visa. But the balloon is very high. So you have, say, about 12 years to save that money, which is around 40, let's say 50,000 per parent, 100,000 for two of them. You can save that over this period of 8 to 12 years.
But they only need to have health insurance on one type of parent visa, or any parent visa they apply, they need health insurance here?
Whenever someone is on a bridging visa after they have applied, it's parent visa or any visa, if they are onshore, it is always advisable to have health insurance. Health insurance is not mandatory. When you apply onshore, you get a bridging visa. There's no condition that says you must have health insurance. Health insurance is something that is recommended to avoid sudden expenditure so that you are covered.
Thank you for your final thoughts, and thank you for your valuable time.
You're welcome.
So that's all for today, folks, and we'll probably see you soon. Right? Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.